Some thanks. First of all, to Kara Kritchen, Dr. Kara Kritchen, who, thanks to her inviting me to allowing me to attend her Perpetrator conference in September, I think, made me prepare this talk, which now came in handy when Ken Walzer didn't come. I really did want to speak in the conference, but there weren't enough places for us, the organizers. So this is a chance. What I'm showing now is actually I think the complete opposite of what Annalise did a minute ago. I'm going to the micro, to the testimonies, and I'm going to make conclusions from several testimonies. I'll say only this, that whoever has testimonies about the subjects which I'll talk about, which are early, I will be very interested in them. I know many of you are in the field. We have Emuna Nachmani Gafni here, who is a leading researcher in this field too. But I will say a few words what are early children's testimonies. We're talking about testimonies given by children when they were children. And this is actually the thing that really interests me. And we have thousands of testimonies in the archives given by children when they were children, or young teenagers, or young adults, but they were children in the Holocaust. So who were the collectors of these testimonies? Private people, institutions. Why were they collected? What were the goals, the cultural, social, historical background and context? How was the work done? What methodologies developed? I've written the length of this. If you search for me in the Academia Edu site, you will find some 5+ papers on this with colleagues. But I'll say this, we're talking about a very widespread phenomenon. We're talking about, I need 5 minutes before. We're talking about a very wide phenomenon. We see Jewish institutions collecting testimonies, we see private people collecting testimonies. We are just publishing now in East European Jewish Affairs a notebook I've been working with Beata Muller of Newcastle University. We call it the Beetle Notebook. A survivor teacher interviewing survivor students of his in 1945, writing it all down. It's going to come out in English now in the next issue of East European Jewish Affairs. So this is a private initiative, totally private. We have initiatives like this all over the survivor landscape, wherever that is.
Right, Tenenbaum was also private.
Tenenbaum. I just didn't say all the names. We wrote a paper together about one of the big collectors, who's Benjamin Tenenbaum. He came to Poland right after the war and collected, he says, 1,000 testimonies. We have 700 of them on hand in ghetto fighters. So it's private, and many teachers are involved, and this can be explained, but this is not my main issue. Why collect testimonies? There are several goals. I think the fact that many teachers collect is important, because people who are educators understand that you have to know what the children went through. Something amazing that didn't happen when the children came to the post-war world. After that, to Israel or to the US or wherever, they were not asked anymore what happened to them in the war, but this usually happened in the immediate post-war years. How was the work done? We're talking about two general methods. One is interviewing, one is asking the children to write an essay. We have very few recorded audio testimonies in the Border collection, maybe 4 or 5 kids, young, already older. So the amazing thing is that these people who collected testimonies were really the cutting edge of research, even compared to now. If we think that in 1945, the handbook for collecting children's testimonies is coming out in Poland, published in Yiddish and in Polish, together with some other instructions for collecting from adults. But there's a whole chapter of how to collect testimonies from children and why do we collect testimonies from children. I wrote about this, so I will not say it now. One thing that is very important for the collectors is the issue of Jewish-Gentile relations. This is a major issue, and it's obvious that all the children who survived, most of the children who survived through non-Jews and encountered a lot of non-Jews. We're talking about very small percentage of Jewish children in the Holocaust, the ones who survived, which is the usual numbers, and I know there isn't a real number, but the usual numbers quoted are 11% of Jewish children in Europe survived the Holocaust, only 11%. When we come to Poland, it's between 0.5% to 3%. No one really knows the numbers. But that's the usual numbers quoted. So we are talking about the children who survived. We have no information about the children who did not survive. What I want to do, so this issue of what the children, how the children saw the population they met, the non-Jewish population, is very important for the recorders. And you can see this thing I'm showing now was quoted by Jan Thomas Gross in his book Fear. That's how he opened the book. I said, wait, I'm writing about this. How come he chose this excerpt? This is from the introduction to one of the 3 anthologies of children's testimonies published in 1947. 1947 is Children Anthologies year. You've got one volume coming out in Poland, in Polish, The Children Accused. You've got a volume coming out in Tel Aviv, one of a family, one of a town, 2 of a town. You've got a volume coming out in Buenos Aires. 1948, you have a 4th volume coming out in Paris. So this is a major item on bookshelves of coming out after the war. And this is the Polish volume. Maria Hochberg Marianska is her underground name. And she was also called in Israel Miriam Peleg, if you want to find her in the archives. Whenever the children, now everyone writes, she writes very nicely, she said, whenever the children encountered good people, help or encouragement, they expressed their appreciation in words, full of the warmest feelings. Every human gesture, even just the offering of a slice of bread, words of genuine sympathy, these heartfelt reactions in the terrible days of the Holocaust, none of these has been forgotten by these persecuted children. It's very important for her to say that the children are grateful, not unlike what the general Polish claim after the war, that the Jews are ungrateful. So, no, the kids are grateful, it's okay. And every time the child came across noble people, in the same frank and straightforward way, the children describe evil deeds and base people. Again, children speak about bad deeds and the awful people with the same honesty and directness. Now, when I saw there was a perpetrator conference, I said, what can we learn from children's testimonies about perpetrators? Now, we can't learn anything about the big Nazis and the big decisions. But what we can learn is about the interface between the weakest victims and the rank and file perpetrator. We are not talking now the dynamics inside Police Battalion 101. We are talking about these 2 Germans patrolling the wood and having a chance meeting with a Jewish child. This is a totally different story, I think. And this, I think, so what I'm going to show, these are all these children testimony books coming out after the war. I will not say anything more about this because I want to talk about perpetrators. So I divided a few testimonies, randomly picked from the ones I work on, according to 4 categories. One is victims of and witnesses to cruelty. And I mean cruelty. Like nothing in the orders. We're talking about cruelty. Secondly, I want to talk about perpetrators as sexual predators, rescuers who become perpetrators, and perpetrators who become rescuers. Now, all this is today in today's research. If you have the issue of rescuers who become perpetrators is very strong in Jan Grabowski's work. The issue of sexual assault on Jewish women and girls is very strong today in research, something we didn't talk about before. It doesn't fit what we thought, that the Germans were racist. So we see that through the children we can see the practice of genocide, not only the talk about genocide. I have codes here. C is cruelty. This is from the Bitum notebook, the one I told you about. I will never forget the scene in which my father, Shlomo Mishalov, was delegated to go to the German sadists to ransom the community. After taking the money, 2 tall Germans, one with a monocle, took my father down to the huge bridge, and from there they hurled him into the depths of the river. I mean, this is a compliant Jew, the one who brought the money in. This is also from the Bitum notebook. They were, it's a group, a family in the woods, escaping the Germans, and then suddenly a German patrol comes in. I was the last one in the line, and I was the first to see them. That is why I still managed to clamber up a thickly branched pine tree. They caught my mother first. Then my sister also fell into their hands. A blonde German asked my mother, "Where are the rest of the people?" "I don't know. You were here with them. I didn't see anyone else." The blonde man hit her in the belly. Now this is the child. She's 14 when she tells the story, so she's probably 10 or 12 when this happened. The blonde man hit her in the belly with a boot and ordered her to dance on one foot as far as the hiding place, and then she would remain alive. My mother began dancing, and as she was hopping, he shot her with his machine gun. They took my sister away with them, so they took the sister. I'm not putting this in the others, but it corresponds to that. This is Yad Vashem Archives. I think this is a very strong testimony. This is a bit later than the ones I work on. This is from the early 1950s. So it's a bit after what I do. It was taken in Israel. I stood in the front of the good-looking German. He was 8 years old when this story happened, okay? I stood in front of the good-looking German and I told him all sorts of stories. "You are a Jew," he said. "No." He asked me to cross myself, to pray, and he knew. Then he asked me to take off my pants. That was there. I told him all sorts of stories. He told me to dress up and took me out. Started walking with me in the yard, talking, lit a cigarette, offered me. I said, "No, I do not smoke." As he was talking, I saw his hand moving towards his gun. As he was opening the holster, I ran. I jumped like a cat over the fence. He came after me and shot me. That's my mistakes, all the mistakes. Shot me once or twice. The bullets grazed my leg, but I managed to escape. Now, I find this story very instructive. There is a face-to-face contact with this German and the child. And they go out into the yard, and the German smokes, and they talk, and he offers him a cigarette. And then he takes out his gun to kill him. So what we can see, I think, in all this group of stories, again, this is a random, totally random choice of testimonies I met in the last years. I have many more, but these are the ones who stood up when I worked on this. So we have a whole group of stories about plain cruelty. Now there's no commander here looking and checking. All these stand for the experiments, all the talks about dynamics, group dynamic, they don't exist here. But still, there's real cruelty. The bottom line is that the Jews are here to die. Or before they die, we'll do whatever we'll do. I'll talk about rescuers who become perpetrators. Okay? Genia Schurz was born in 1932 in Podjace. They were hidden by someone. He wasn't sure he wanted to have such a big group to hide, but they got stuck with them. So he dug a bunker. The bunker was small. We sat on each other. The only consolation was that we were together. If I would have given a lecture on family survival strategy, I would have used this testimony to show that the idea was, do we stay together or do we break up the family? Where is the biggest chance? They broke up the family, in the end they got together and they decided to go through whatever happens together, so they hide in this. First he gave us food, but later he said that 2 should remain and 2 should leave. He stopped giving, no, they don't want to leave, of course. So he stopped giving us food. We began to suffer hard times. It was hot and we were hungry and thirsty. The Gentile decided not to give us food until we died. We suffered so greatly that it can't be described. Once a day, we received a small pot of food, no bread, no water, no change of shirts. We became filthy. The dirt ate at us. We sat that way for 5 months. We saw no light. I remember that I found a small mirror. Looked into it. I screamed and cried that this was not a human visage. I couldn't bear it anymore. I became ill and could no longer stand on my feet. There was a frost. My father and brother went out. without the Gentiles' knowledge. We brought food from other Gentiles. So we decided, if one of us died, we would revenge ourselves against that Gentile after liberation and not let him live either. So this is, I mean, he is saving them. He is risking his life. But he needs some of them to die off. There's too many people to harm. At least this is how they see it. Would have been interested to say how we would have told this story. But this is fact. Rosa Pintsevsky, I wrote about her in a paper on von Letzenhuben. 2 months later, the peasant who, these rescuers who become perpetrators. This story went up later on the Israeli internet because her daughter went and met the protagonists here. 2 months later, the peasant to whom the bunker belonged came and told us the Russians had broken through the front, that we Germans were running away and we were searching houses and fields. Because of that, he was afraid to keep us. Also, you should give him money and he will guide us to the deep forest. Anyway, early the next morning, when it was still dark, a car drew behind the bunker. We came out. We couldn't walk. They were all cramped in the hall. All 3 of us got into the cart. My brother and I carried Mama into the cart. We were very weak, drove away. They reached some spot. The president told them to get off the cart. Out of the bushes came Butzek's brother. Leading us the same hand, he started to shoot. I jumped first off the cart and started running towards the field. Butzek's brother ran after me and fired. He caught up with me and held me by the hand. I pulled the gun. This is a 12-year-old girl. And he was not such a big soldier. I asked him to spare me. He refused. Václav came up to us, took the gun. I looked at him, he shot my little brother. There was this full moon. I started screaming, but he wanted to shoot me. I ran. I fell into the water, reached the opposite bank of the stream and survived. Then I heard 2 more shots. My mother shouting help. Then there was silence. Now this is a real story, that these guys were even put in jail after the war. I mean, there are several versions of this, but the story is always the same. Some sexual molestation. The commandant was not satisfied with the way my sister Hilda washed his floor, so he undressed her upper half and ordered, "You must go home thus, without a shirt." I arrived home naked with some sort of smile. She said that luckily for August, no one had noticed. At dawn we found her with her throat cut. So, humiliation. Standing naked in front of the graves, a militiaman I knew brought me a coat, asking me seriously, "If you will be mine, I'll rescue you." Not answering a word, I immediately began to run away naked. Pushing himself through thick vegetation, I mean, he's doing as if he's chasing her. Shot 2 shots, took himself back angrily to the graves. He didn't catch her. We were together 13 months. So this girl is saved on line of the militiamen murdering her community and family, and they live together as a couple for 13 months. There are also good, I say children also give other stories. I want to conclude because I'm feeling the 1 minute deadline on my hand. We have a lot of, there's a big argument, what drove the killers, the murderers? Is it, can you explain this without anti-Semitism, with anti-Semitism? We have a Browning, we have a Goldhagen. People are trying to give answers. I think Children's Testimonies give us a very distinct angle on what is going on with the perpetrators. We have to re-examine things we think about perpetrators, and it's not nice because it turns out very bad. I mean, perpetrators turn out much worse now. You can't blame your social, you don't have social explanations, you can't blame other things. This is plain dehumanizing and killing of Jews wherever you meet them. So what is going in their heads? What is the ideology that is fueling this? I think this is worth researching, and I'm open to any more testimonies like this. I'm sure there's a lot. I've just started to scrape the surface. I don't think we'll have a statistical result here, but I do think we have approaches, we have phenomena that are existing and need explanation. Thank you.